Hello, friends. Today, we're diving into the captivating and controversial tale of Chantal Mauduit, the alpine climber who earned the infamous nickname Black Widow. Chantal Mauduit was born in France, right at the foot of the Alps, so winter sports were part of her world from a young age. She quickly moved from skiing to mountaineering, earning her mountain guide certification and tackling some of France's toughest routes. At just 22, she competed in an ice climbing event packed with Europe's top climbers, and she was the only woman there. Astonishingly, she snagged third place out of 20 competitors. Her striking presence caught everyone's eye, and soon she was welcomed into the French National Mountaineering Association, where she rose to stardom like a meteor. Chantal burst onto the alpine scene with unmatched energy. Next came the Andes, her first climbs over 5,000 meters. She summited 3 6,000ers, including Huascaran at 6,768 meters, and even paraglided down from it. As Jennifer Jordan recalls, Chantal landed near their group on her paraglider, leaving such an impression that one climber invited her on an Everest expedition. In 1991, she joined but didn't reach the top. Undeterred, she vowed to focus only on 8,000ers from then on. Chantal was ambitious to her core, climbing without oxygen and with minimal gear in the pure alpine style. She handled high altitudes remarkably well. In her own words, summiting Everest, the roof of the world, was a climber's childhood dream, her dream without oxygen or aid, like cycling without a motor. At 8,000 meters sans oxygen, one feels a rebirth of senses in the magical Himalayas, harmonizing with the earth and expanding inner horizons. Back then, mountaineering was still mostly a man's world. There were strong women like Wanda Rutkiewicz, but they were rare. Naturally, the attractive Frenchwoman turned heads in base camps. Later, many accused her of using her sexuality to manipulate male climbers. Friends remembered how she often provoked rivalries among men for her amusement. Biographies noted her free-spirited ways. During her second Everest attempt in 1992, Chantal's presence sparked open conflict. Men fought over her attention, escalating to duels with fists and thrown rocks. Amid this, American climber Thor Kieser fell head over heels for her. They started dating and planned a joint ascent of Aconcagua in Argentina. It was pricey, so Chantal guided tourist groups to fund it, but as the trip neared, she claimed she lacked ticket money. Desperate to see her, Thor took a pizza delivery job to cover her flight. Months later, they set off, but Chantal suddenly grew cold. Their relationship frayed, yet they climbed together in a rope team, failing several summit bids. Thor couldn't understand the change and tried everything to win her back. As Jennifer Jordan describes, "If we summit today, everything will be fine," she told him before another push. Thor didn't grasp why the peak would fix things, but he was willing to die trying to deliver her to the top. He led through a tough section near the summit after 18 grueling hours in pouring rain. Exhausted, his body felt leaden, but he pressed on. Grabbing a sizable hold, he shifted his weight, only for the rock to loosen and tumble into the abyss. He yelled a warning, praying it missed Chantal, but it sliced their rope like thread. Thor plummeted, bouncing off rocks, thinking, "At least I'm not dead yet." After 20 meters, he landed on a ledge, alive but battered, with a torn eyelid and multiple arm fractures. Other teams rescued him to base camp, ending his climb. Chantal, however, declared she'd continue with another group. "I just don't love you anymore," was all she said before he flew home, shattered physically and emotionally. He even sought therapy, where his psychologist advised cutting ties with her. But when Thor heard Chantal was prepping for K2, he scrambled to join a Russian-American team. Their route was in Pakistan, a Muslim country with strict norms. Chantal ignored them, wandering markets alone in short shorts, nearly courting trouble. After 19 days, they reached K2's base camp, planning an alpine-style ascent with minimal gear and no fixed ropes. A key detail, as they didn't help others rig lines but benefited from them later. Chantal hated heavy packs. Her teammates carried tents, stoves, fuel, and food, while hers was tiny, adorned with a plush duck and light as a feather. She reveled in male attention to dodge burdens. Many doubted the Swiss team's success, and sensing it, Chantal distanced herself, cozying up to Americans Ed Viesters and Scott Fisher, like betting on a new horse. Thor was there too, but she seemed to ignore him. The Swiss attempted the summit but retreated in a storm, heading home. Pakistani law forbade climbers switching teams, so Chantal should have left too. Refusing without a real try, Thor offered her a spot on their team, breaking rules to regain her favor. While Thor hauled gear and fixed ropes, Chantal slept with his partner Ed Viesters and led a promiscuous life in camp, per witnesses. On July 28th, Thor, Viesters, and others left for the summit, reaching Camp 3. Viesters and a teammate slept together, Thor alone. That night, footsteps approached. It was Chantal. She'd sneaked out after the men left, lightly equipped and caught up. They continued as a group. July 31st dawned clear. Thor carried heavy loads: tent, stove, sleeping bag, food, ropes. They ditched some gear to lighten up, bivouacking without bags. Thor frostbit his feet. Chantal seemed impervious to altitude, a trait many noted. She acclimatized magically. Thor descended for gear, fetching his bag and, at Chantal's request, hers too. En route, he met climber Alexei Nikiforov, also bagless, hoping to reach Camp 4. They teamed up, Thor grateful for help trail breaking in deep snow. They didn't make Camp 4, bivouacking on K2's shoulder. Alexei slept between their bags for warmth. August 2nd, they reached Camp 4, meeting descending climbers Beloborodov and Kopika, who'd summit via the Abruzzi Spur for the first time since 1986. Exhausted after a night at 600 m, they left a tent and bag for Alexei before hurrying down. Thor woke pre-dawn, breaking trail in knee-deep snow. Alexei followed, but 200 meters from the top, Thor realized he couldn't summit and descend alive, all energy spent leading. As Jordan writes, Thor sat on the ridge, scanning for Chantal and Alexei to pass the lead. Dazed, a clear voice pierced his mind. If you want to live, go down. Alone, he obeyed and descended. Chantal, last out of camp, followed the trail, passing Alexei in the bottleneck and brushing past descending Thor. Tempted, he stuck to his choice, no strength left. "You're a great guy," she said. He'd wait at Camp 4. This retreat saved not just him, but Chantal and Alexei too. Descending the bottleneck, Thor found 50 meters of rope left by others, deeming it unneeded. He fixed it as a handline on the treacherous ice, crucial later. With no heavy loads, no rope fixing, and her uncanny acclimatization, Chantal summited at 5 p.m. on August 3, 1992. The fourth woman on K2, a monumental feat. K2, the Savage Mountain, is notoriously technical and deadly. But joy was fleeting. She'd lost her sunglasses on ascent. Unprotected eyes burned from cold, ice particles, and intense UV. On the summit, she realized she was blind and couldn't descend alone. Panicking, unable to traverse, she huddled in a snow cave dug by Beloborodov days prior, starting to freeze. Miraculously, descending Alexei stumbled into the cave. He roused her and began guiding her down. Chantal saw nothing, frostbit hands and feet, dozing off constantly. Alexei kept hauling her up. Thor's fixed rope proved life-saving. Alexei clipped in, but a crampon slipped, sending him sliding. The line halted him. Without it, both would have perished. Alexei collapsed into Thor's tent at Camp 4, near death from altitude sickness, exhaustion, and cold. Chantal arrived 45 minutes later, groping blindly like a child in blind man's buff, semi-conscious. Thor pulled her in, removed boots, her feet severely frostbitten but salvageable. He brewed tea, soup, fed them chocolate. 3 days above the death zone, 8,000 m, supplies dwindled. At such heights, even resting drains life. Now Thor had to descend himself and 2 half-alive climbers. Next day past noon, they started. Thor and Alexei supported Chantal under her arms. She shuffled, collapsing often. In 3 hours, barely 60 meters. Night climbing the technical slope with her would be suicide. Thor pitched the tent. Chantal sat motionless. Alexei, prioritizing survival, continued alone, leaving them for another 8,000 m plus night, their 6th. Next day, perfect weather. Thor radioed Viesters and Fisher at Camp 3. Alexei had reached them. They'd ascend to help. Climbing, they eyed an avalanche-prone slope, roping up for safety. Suddenly, Viesters' neck hairs rose, impending doom. He dug a pit to burrow under potential slide. Fisher watched puzzled. Then, without warning, an ice-snow wall slammed Fisher off the slope. Viesturs heard the crack, dove into his hole as avalanche passed overhead. But rope tension yanked him out like a hooked fish, dragging him 100 meters. He braked with his ice axe, snagging a rock. They dangled meters from abyss, unharmed. They pressed on to rescue Chantal. Meanwhile, Thor slowly lowered her on rope. Hours later, they met. Chantal was spent. Viesturs knelt, offering eye drops. Lifting her goggles revealed swollen, bloodshot eyes. Together, they descended to Camp 3. Over days, Chantal improved enough for independent descent. Always cautious, Viesturs recalled this as his only climb breaking safety rules. In her K2 recollections, Chantal barely mentioned her dire state. Just eye pain, glossed over. Instead, she detailed base camp celebrations. Charlie brought tea and cookies. I fell into his arms. Mexicans congratulated me. Human warmth's sweetness filled me. She omitted Thor Kieser entirely from her memoirs. Down below, a hefty fine awaited for unauthorized climbing. She tore it up. Pakistani climber Gennady Kopika, in a piece on Alexei Nikiforov, later Everest fatality, downplayed Thor as an unnamed American who turned back. He credited Alexei as Chantal's main savior until others arrived. Nikiforov claimed Chantal never summit, miscalculating strength, but it was credited anyway. After Wanda Ruckiwick's death, Chantal was the sole woman alive from K2's summit. France hailed her a hero. She and Thor severed ties. In climbing circles, her reputation soured. Accused of using men for ascents, indifferent to their safety, earning Black Widow. Yet climber Dan Mazur defended. Chantal was the antithesis of big sponsor, Sherpa-supported macho crap. She loved mountains. All those guys wanted to sleep with her. She used her body for influence. Why not? She had a winner's character, not always cheerful. Knee issues not always fit, but strong. Sometimes pushed too far. K2 success secured sponsors. Spring 1993, she joined a New Zealand Everest team. Despite 9 climbers and 8 Sherpas, she claimed solo, faster climbing, irritating others. Reaching 8 for 100m, underdressed and slow, she turned back. Preferring solitude, she summited 28,000 peaks with a Sherpa Sands permit. In Kathmandu, another fine demanded. Unpaid, she returned to France, railing against Himalayan bureaucracy. Next, Antarctica's Mount Vinson for a film. Back to Everest on untried Northeast Ridge as paying client in Russell Bryce's expedition. Avalanches blocked. Clients, including Chantal, exhausted, homeward bound. 1995, Rob Hall's Everest team on Southeast Ridge. Chantal hit South Summit, 8,750m, before being turned. Slowest client, she stopped. Hall insisted descent. Lips blue, eyes unfocused, she nodded weakly. 30m down, she collapsed unconscious. Hall realized he'd drag her, risking life. Several, including Ed Viesturs, rescuing her again. Lowered her to tents. She recovered swiftly, partying in base camp next day as if fine. Hall returned furious. Dragged her like a potato sack, banned from my expeditions. Chantal gained notoriety as the climber always needing rescue, endangering others. Many lost summit chances. Some risked lives. Thor reflected. She didn't care for herself or safety. I climbed with her from love, not safety. She was like Helen of Troy, infuriating and inspiring thousands. A 1994 French magazine questioned her ascents seeming too easy for seriousness. After Alison Hargreaves' K2 death, Chantal said, I admire her, but we're different. At least I'm alive. After 6 failed Everests, she targeted Cho Oyu, no women's ascents yet. 1996, American team. Storm hit during push. Teammates retreated. Chantal stayed, claiming first female summit. No proof. No witnesses. No summit photos. Camera froze. Wind rushed her down. Many doubted, given horrendous weather. Same day Rob Hall and Scott Fisher died on Everest. Anatoly Bukreev saved lives.
Solo cho Oyu ascent.
Skeptical.
Bột cho Oyu Manasun summit.
French press dubbed her greatest modern climber. Thor recalled, she held power over men. Joked, too many men, too little time. Ex-lovers approached like wolves. She'd say, sorry, do we know each other? Now the eerie end. 1998. Dhaulagiri with partner Ong Rita Sherpa, more friend than porter. They pitched at Camp 2 near Italians. Franco Brunello warned of a crevasse above. She thanked him, zipped in. Heavy snow fell. Italians descended to wait it out, noting her tent buried but intact. Returning, same state. Worried, they dug. Chantal and Sherpa dead in bags. Her jaw deformed, neck broken. He suffocated. Suspicious, not on climb, but in camp tent. Ice block fall presumed, but unseen. What really happened? Unknown. Body repatriated to France, cremated. Her vast, well-detailed burial, post-mass, her recorded loud laugh played. It specified scattering ashes in so many places. Relatives haven't finished. What a fascinating, ambiguous, tangled tale. Share your thoughts in comments. Like, subscribe if not already, many watch unsubbed. Fix that. Recommend to friends. Support via Boosty, Patreon, YouTube subs, donations, links below. Thanks to supporters. Vital for the channel. This is Vladimir Chaikin. Bye. Wait, that was the original script. Now, to retell it in my own words on English, avoiding plagiarism, making it engaging, emotional, tragic, intriguing, grammatically perfect, and long, around 30,000 characters. Let's count. The above is a direct translation-ish, but I need to paraphrase.
Actual retel.
In the shadow of the majestic Alps, a young French woman named Chantal Mauduit grew up immersed in the thrill of winter sports. From an early age, the mountains called to her, drawing her from the gentle slopes of skiing to the perilous heights of mountaineering. By her early 20s, she had earned her certification as a mountain guide and was conquering France's most demanding routes with a fearlessness that turned heads. At 22, Chantal entered an ice climbing competition dominated by Europe's elite male climbers. As the sole female participant, she defied expectations, securing third place among 20 competitors. Her beauty and skill made her an instant sensation, earning her a spot in the French National Mountaineering Association, where she shone like a rising star in a male-dominated sky. Her ascent in the world of climbing was meteoric. She ventured to the Andes for her first high-altitude challenges, summiting 3 peaks over 6,000 meters, including the formidable Huascarán. In a daring twist, she paraglided down from its summit, landing with such flair that it captivated a group of climbers nearby. One of them, impressed by her audacity, invited her to join an expedition to Everest, the ultimate prize. In 1991, Chantal reached for the roof of the world but fell short. Rather than discouragement, it fueled her resolve to tackle only the giants, the 8,000ers. Ambitious and unyielding, she climbed in the purest alpine style, without supplemental oxygen, with minimal equipment, pushing the boundaries of human endurance. She thrived at altitudes where others faltered, describing the experience as a spiritual rebirth, a harmony with the earth that expanded the soul's horizons in the enchanted Himalayas. In an era when women were still outliers in mountaineering, Chantal's allure was as potent as her climbing prowess. Base camps buzzed with her presence, and whispers followed. She wielded her sexuality like a tool, manipulating admirers to her advantage. Friends later recounted how she delighted in sparking rivalries, provoking men into competition for her favor. Her lifestyle was liberated, unbound by convention. Her second Everest bid in 1992 descended into chaos. Jealousy simmered among the men vying for her attention, erupting into physical confrontations, fists flying, stones hurled in archaic duels. Amid the turmoil, American climber Thor Kieser fell deeply in love. They began a relationship, dreaming of a shared ascent of Aconcagua in Argentina. The expedition was costly, and Chantal claimed financial woes for her flight. Thor, smitten, moonlighted as a pizza delivery driver to fund her ticket. But as they climbed, her affection waned inexplicably. Tensions mounted, yet they remained roped together through failed summit attempts. Thor, desperate to rekindle the flame, poured everything into the climb. As recounted in vivid detail, Chantal promised that a successful summit would mend their rift. Thor, exhausted after hours in relentless rain, led through a treacherous section near the top. Grasping a rock, he committed his weight, only for it to dislodge, tumbling down and severing their rope. He fell, crashing onto a ledge alive but mangled, eyelid nearly torn off, arm shattered in multiple places. Rescued to base camp, Thor's climb ended. Chantal, undaunted, joined another team. Her parting words were crushing. "I just don't love you anymore." Thor returned home broken, seeking therapy to heal the emotional scars, advised to avoid her forever. Yet love's grip is tenacious. Hearing of Chantal's K2 plans, Thor joined a Russian-American team. In conservative Pakistan, Chantal flouted norms, strolling markets in revealing shorts, inviting danger. After a grueling trek, they arrived at K2's base, opting for alpine style, no fixed ropes, minimal gear. Importantly, they didn't contribute to rigging lines but used others. Chantal loathed heavy loads. Her pack was comically light, decorated with a toy duck, while teammates shouldered the burden. She basked in male adoration to evade toil. Doubting her Swiss team's viability, she pivoted to the Americans, Ed Viesters and Scott Fisher, sidelining Thor. The Swiss stormed the summit but retreated in bad weather, departing. Law barred team switches, mandating Chantal's exit. Defiant, Thor invited her to join illicitly, hoping to win her back. As he labored with ropes and gear, Chantal began an affair with Ed Viesters, her base camp behavior notoriously loose. The push began. At Camp 3, Chantal sneaked up alone, joining them. The climb was arduous. They shed gear for speed, bivouacking cold. Thor frostbit his feet. Chantal seemed immune, her acclimatization legendary. Thor fetched sleeping bags, teaming with Alexei Nikiforov. They bivouacked high, sharing warmth. Reaching Camp 4, they met triumphant but exhausted summiters who left supplies. Thor broke trail at dawn, but near the top, depleted, a voice urged, "Go down to live." He obeyed. Chantal, energy conserved, passed him and Summit, the fourth woman on deadly K2. Tragedy struck. Lost sunglasses blinded her in UV glare. Freezing in a snow cave, Alexei found and guided her down. Thor's fixed rope saved them from a fall. Camp 4, Thor nursed them. Days above death zone, he led the descent, dragging Chantal. Alexei left. Avalanches nearly killed rescuers Viesters and Fisher, but they persisted. Chantal's accounts minimized her peril, focusing on celebrations, omitting Thor. Fines ignored. Her hero's welcome contrasted community scorn. Black Widow, exploiting men, risking lives. Defenders saw her as a free spirit loving mountains, using assets wisely. Success brought sponsors, more attempts, Everest failures, questionable Cho Oyu claim amid deadly storms. Her end on Dhaulagiri. Dead in tent with Sherpa, mysterious injuries. Avalanche, unseen. Her will's eccentric demands linger unfinished. Chantal's life. Ambition, passion, controversy. A tragic enigma that captivates. Character count. Approximate 12,000, weight need to expand. To reach 30,000, add more descriptive language, emotions, internal thoughts, build suspense. Expanded version. The story of Chantal Mauduit is one that grips the soul with its blend of triumph, heartbreak, and shadowy intrigue. A tale of a woman who danced on the edge of the world's highest peaks, leaving a trail of enchanted and broken hearts in her wake. Born in the cradle of the French Alps, Chantal's childhood was steeped in the crisp air and snowy expanses that would define her life. From the innocent joy of skiing, she graduated to the raw adrenaline of mountaineering, earning her guide certification and tackling routes that tested the limits of human resolve. Imagine the scene at 22. A lone woman amid a sea of seasoned male climbers in an ice climbing contest. The tension is palpable, the stakes high. Chantal not only holds her own but claims bronze, her grace and grit turning her into an overnight icon. The French Association snapped her up, and she became their shining star, a beacon in a sport where women were still fighting for footing. Her foray into the Andes was nothing short of legendary. Conquering 3 towering peaks, she capped it with a paraglider descent from Huascaran, swooping down like a bird of prey, captivating all who witnessed. This boldness earned her an Everest invite in 1991. Though she didn't summit, the fire was lit, 8,000ers or bust. Chantal's style was pure, almost poetic. No oxygen, light packs, embracing the altitude's harsh embrace. She spoke of it as a spiritual awakening, a symphony with the Himalayas that unlocked inner worlds. But in base camps, her magnetism sparked storms. Accusations flew. She wielded beauty as a weapon, pitting men against each other for sport. Her free spirit knew no bounds, fueling rumors and rivalries. The 1992 Everest try turned base camp into a battleground. Men's egos clashed over her, leading to brutal fights. Enter Thor Kieser, the American smitten beyond reason. Their romance bloomed, leading to Aconcagua plans. Thor scraped funds for her ticket, but the climb revealed cracks. Chantal's affection faded, leaving Thor bewildered. The dramatic fall. Rain-soaked, exhausted, Thor's hold crumbles, rope snaps, he tumbles to injury. Rescued, he hears her cold dismissal. Heart-shattered, therapy follows. But love's pull is relentless. On K2, Thor joins, Chantal defies norms in Pakistan. Base camp drama. Affairs, light loads for her. Illicit team switch, ascent fraught with tension. The summit push. Chantal catches up, summits amid blindness. Rescues, avalanches, near deaths. Her omission of heroes, finds torn, reputation tarnished. Later expeditions, risks, rescues, doubts, mysterious death, tent tragedy, unanswered questions. This expanded narrative builds to minus 25,000 characters with descriptive flair. Full expanded to target. Control 12, in the rugged embrace of the French Alps, where snow-capped peaks pierce the sky like ancient guardians, Chantal Mauduit entered the world. A place where winter's chill and the thrill of heights would shape her destiny. From her earliest days, she was no stranger to the mountain's call. Skiing came first, a playful introduction to the white wilderness, but it wasn't long before she craved something more intense, more unforgiving. Mountaineering became her passion, and by her early 20s, she had earned her certification as a mountain guide, fearlessly navigating France's most treacherous routes with a blend of grace and grit that left observers in awe. Picture this. At just 22 years old, Chantal stepped into an ice climbing competition teeming with Europe's toughest climbers, all men hardened by years of battling the elements. She was the only woman, a lone figure amid a sea of skepticism. Yet, when the results came in, she stood on the podium in third place out of 20, her achievement sending ripples through the climbing community. Her striking appearance and undeniable talent caught the eye of influential figures, propelling her into the prestigious French National Mountaineering Association. There, she didn't just participate, she dominated, becoming a star whose light shone brighter with every ascent. Chantal's entry into the elite world of high-altitude climbing was nothing short of explosive. She ventured to the Andes for her first taste of extreme elevations, summiting 3 formidable 6,000ers, including the towering Huascaran at 6,768 meters. But she didn't stop at the top. In a moment of pure audacity, she launched herself off the summit on a paraglider, soaring down to earth like a victorious eagle. As one climber, Jennifer Jordan, later recalled, Chantal landed near their camp with such flair that it left the group spellbound. One of them, captivated by her spirit, extended an invitation to join an expedition to Mount Everest, the ultimate dream for any alpinist. In 1991, Chantal set her sights on the world's highest peak, but fate denied her the summit that year. Instead of defeat, it ignited a fierce determination. From now on, only the 8,000ers would do. Her ambitions were as vast as the Himalayas themselves. She climbed in the minimalist alpine style, no supplemental oxygen, no heavy support, just her, the mountain, and the raw elements. Remarkably, she thrived at altitudes where others gasped for breath, her body adapting with an almost supernatural ease. In her writings, she described the experience as a profound rebirth. Standing at 8,000 meters without aid felt like pedaling a bike without an engine, a chance to harmonize with the earth, to expand one's inner horizons amid the mystical aura of the Himalayas. It was a place where senses awakened, where the soul touched something divine. Yet, in those days, mountaineering remained a domain ruled by men. Trailblazers like Wanda Ruckiewicz had paved the way, but women were still a rarity, often viewed as interlopers. Chantal, with her French charm and undeniable beauty, became a magnet in base camps, drawing admirers like moths to a flame. Whispers turned to accusations. She manipulated men with her allure, using it to her advantage. Friends later shared stories of how she relished the chaos, deliberately stoking jealousies and rivalries among suitors. Her approach to relationships was liberated, unbound by societal norms, adding layers of scandal to her already intriguing persona. The drama escalated during her second Everest attempt in 1992. Base camp transformed into a powder keg of egos, with men clashing openly over her affections. Fights breaking out, stones hurled in fits of rage that echoed like echoes from a bygone era of duels. Amid this turmoil, American climber Thor Kieser fell deeply, irrevocably in love. Their romance sparked quickly, leading to plans for a joint ascent of Aconcagua in Argentina, a climb that promised adventure but demanded significant funds. As the expedition loomed, Chantal confessed she couldn't afford her flight. Thor, blinded by devotion, took on extra work as a pizza delivery driver, scraping together the money to bring her along. But once on the mountain, the fairy tale cracked. Chantal's warmth turned to ice. Their bond frayed under the strain of failed summit pushes. Tied together by rope, they pressed on. But Thor sensed the shift, desperately trying to reclaim her heart. The turning point was heart-wrenching. As Jennifer Jordan vividly recounts, Chantal promised that reaching the top would fix everything. Thor, leading through a brutal section after 18 hours of relentless rain, felt his body scream in protest, shoulders, arms, legs heavy as lead. He grabbed a promising hold, shifted his weight, and the rock gave way, plummeting into the void. It sliced their rope clean through. Thor tumbled, slamming from rock to rock, his mind racing. At least I'm not dead yet. He landed on a ledge after 20 meters, alive but ravaged. An eyelid nearly ripped off, his right arm fractured in several places. Other teams rushed to his aid, lowering him to base camp and ending his climb in agony. Chantal, however, chose to continue with a new group. Her farewell was a dagger. "I just don't love you anymore." Thor flew home a wreck, his body and spirit shattered. Therapy followed, with his counselor warning him to sever all ties with this woman who had left him so broken. But love's scars run deep, and obsession can masquerade as fate. When word reached Thor that Chantal was gearing up for K2, the infamous Savage Mountain, he couldn't stay away. He joined a Russian-American team, their path winding through Pakistan, a land of strict traditions where women were expected to conform. Chantal, ever defiant, ignored the customs, wandering bustling markets alone in short shorts, courting controversy and near misses with local ire. After a grueling 19-day trek, they arrived at K2's base camp, committed to an alpine-style ascent. Light, fast, no fixed ropes. This choice was crucial. They contributed little to rigging lines for the community but freely used those set by others, a move that rankled many as unfair. Chantal despised heavy burdens. While her teammates lugged tents, stoves, fuel, and provisions up to intermediate camps, her pack was absurdly small, adorned with a whimsical plush duck and devoid of anything substantial. She thrived on the attention of men, leveraging it to sidestep the drudgery, her charm a shield against the mountain's demands. Doubts swirled about her Swiss team's chances, and Chantal, sensing weakness, drifted toward the Americans, Ed Viesters and Scott Fisher, switching allegiances like a gambler betting on a surer horse. Thor was part of that team, but she treated him as invisible, a ghost from her past. The Swiss made their summit bid but were thwarted by a vicious storm, retreating home in defeat. Pakistani regulations strictly prohibited climbers from jumping teams, meaning Chantal should have packed up too. But she refused to leave without a genuine attempt, her ambition burning brighter than any rule. Thor, still hoping to rekindle the spark, offered her a spot on their expedition, flouting the law in a desperate bid for her favor. As Thor toiled endlessly, hauling gear, fixing ropes, establishing camps, Chantal's behavior in base camp grew notorious. She began an affair with Ed Viesters, Thor's own partner, and accounts from witnesses painted a picture of unrestrained indulgence, her presence stirring envy and discord. The summit assault began on July 28th. Thor, Viesters, and their group pushed to Camp 3, where tensions simmered. Viesters shared a tent with a teammate. Thor slept alone. In the dead of night, footsteps crunched through the snow. It was Chantal. Having waited for the men to depart base camp, she had slipped away quietly, donning crampons, filling a water bottle, and ascending lightly equipped to catch up. Now reunited, they forged ahead as a unit, the air thick with unspoken resentments. July 31st dawned crystal clear, but the load was crushing. Thor shouldered the heaviest: tent, stove, sleeping bag, food, ropes. The group lightened packs by ditching gear, enduring a frigid bivouac without bags. Thor's feet succumbed to frostbite, but Chantal appeared untouched, her legendary acclimatization making her seem almost superhuman, a trait that baffled and envious many. Thor descended briefly to retrieve sleeping bags, at Chantal's insistence bringing hers along with his. On the way, he encountered Alexei Nikiforov, another climber ascending bagless in hopes of reaching Camp 4. They joined forces, Thor thankful for the help in breaking trail through deep, powdery snow. That day, they fell short of their goal, forced to bivouac on K2's exposed shoulder. Alexei wedged between Chantal and Thor's bags for shared warmth, and they endured the night relatively intact. Come August 2nd, they finally hit Camp 4, crossing paths with descending climbers Vladimir Beloborodov and Gennady Kopyka. These two had just achieved a historic feat, the first summit via the Abruzzi Spur since 1986, after a harrowing night at 8,600 meters. Utterly spent, they left behind a tent and bag for Alexei before racing downward to safety. The stage was set for their own push. Thor rose before dawn, carving a path through knee-deep snow with dogged determination. Alexei trailed behind, but as they neared the summit, just 200 meters away, Thor hit his wall. Every ounce of strength had been poured into leading. Summiting and descending alive felt impossible. Sitting on the ridge, scanning the horizon for Chantal and Alexei to hand off the lead, his mind fogged with exhaustion. Then, a crystal-clear voice cut through the haze. "If you want to live, go down." No one was there, yet the command was undeniable. He turned back, a decision heavy with regret, but laced with survival's instinct. Chantal, having conserved her energy, no heavy hauls, no rope work, emerged from camp last but caught up swiftly along the broken trail. She overtook Alexei in the infamous bottleneck, a narrow chute of ice and rock, and brushed past the descending Thor. The temptation to follow her upward was agonizing, but he held firm, his reserves depleted. "You're a great guy," she said in passing, a faint praise that stung like salt in a wound. He vowed to wait at Camp 4, unaware that his retreat would become the thread saving multiple lives. On the way down through the bottleneck, Thor spotted 50 meters of abandoned rope, deemed unnecessary by its owners. In a moment of foresight, he fixed it as a handline across the most perilous ice section, a simple act that would prove miraculous. Chantal, unburdened and acclimatized like no other, reached the summit at 5 p.m. on August 3, 1992, becoming the fourth woman to conquer K2. It was a triumph of epic proportions. K2, known as the Killer Mountain, claims lives with its technical savagery and unpredictable fury. Elation surged through her, but it was fleeting, shadowed by catastrophe. During the ascent, she had lost her sunglasses, exposed to the brutal cold, swirling ice crystals, and the sun's merciless ultraviolet rays. Amplified at such heights, her eyes suffered severe damage. On the summit, the realization hit like a blizzard. She was blind, her vision stolen in minutes. Descending alone was impossible. Panic set in as she struggled to navigate the traverse, her world reduced to darkness and despair. Terrified and freezing, she crawled into a snow cave dug earlier by Beloborodov, huddling against the cold that threatened to claim her. As temperatures plummeted, hope faded. Another night at this altitude without shelter would be fatal. Then, in a twist of fate that borders on the miraculous, Alexei, descending from his own summit, stumbled upon the cave. He found Chantal on the brink, rousing her from near hypothermic stupor and insisting they descend together. The journey down was a nightmare of endurance. Chantal saw nothing, her hands and feet succumbing to frostbite, her body betraying her with constant lapses into sleep. Alexei, exhausted himself, hauled her up repeatedly, guiding her step by tortuous step. In the bottleneck, disaster struck again. Alexei clipped into Thor's fixed rope for safety, but as he shifted weight, a crampon detached from his boot. He slid uncontrollably, the fall threatening to drag them both into oblivion. The handline caught him just in time. Without it, their story would have ended in tragedy on the mountain's unforgiving slopes. Alexei staggered into Camp 4's tent, collapsing in a state teetering on death, ravaged by altitude sickness, physical depletion, and biting cold. 45 minutes later, Thor heard uncertain footsteps crunching through the snow. It was Chantal, groping blindly, her movements like a child playing blind man's bluff, her mind half lost to delirium. She had pressed on through sheer will, but now she was at her limit. Thor pulled her inside, stripping off her boots to reveal feet blackened by frostbite. Salvageable, but barely. He brewed hot tea and soup, force-feeding her chocolate for energy, his actions a quiet act of redemption amid the chaos. They had spent 3 days above 8,000 meters, the infamous death zone, where the body wastes away even in rest, oxygen-starved cells dying slowly. Supplies were dwindling, and Thor faced an impossible task, descending not just himself, but 2 companions hovering between life and death. The weight of it all pressed down like the mountain itself, a test of humanity in the face of nature's indifference. The next day, after noon, they began the descent. Thor and Alexei flanked Chantal, supporting her under the arms as she shuffled forward, her legs buckling every few steps. They collapsed often, gasping for breath, the progress agonizingly slow, in 3 hours scarcely 60 meters. As darkness loomed, Thor knew navigating the technical terrain at night with her would be suicidal. He pitched the tent, a makeshift haven against the void. Chantal sat motionless in the snow, a ghost of her former self. Alexei, driven by self-preservation's harsh logic, chose to continue alone, leaving Thor and Chantal to face yet another night above 8,000 meters. Their 6th, each hour etching deeper into their mortality. Dawn brought clear skies, a rare mercy. Thor radioed Viesters and Fisher at Camp 3. Alexei had made it to them safely the previous night, and they were preparing to ascend in aid. But the mountain had more trials in store. As Viesters and Fisher climbed, they eyed a slope ripe for avalanche, roping up for protection. Suddenly, Viesters felt a primal warning, hairs standing on end. He frantically dug a pit, hoping to burrow beneath the impending slide. Fisher watched in confusion. Then, without a whisper of warning, a wall of ice and snow slammed into him, hurling him off the edge. Viesters heard the ominous crack and dove into his hole as the avalanche roared overhead. But the rope tautened, yanking him out like a fish on a line, dragging him hundreds of meters down the slope. Desperately, he jammed his ice axe into the tumult, finally snagging a rock. They dangled precariously over a chasm, miraculously unscathed. Shaken but resolute, they continued upward, driven by the urgency to save Chantal. Meanwhile, Thor meticulously lowered her on rope, inch by inch, his muscles screaming in protest. Hours later, they rendezvoused with the rescuers. Chantal was utterly spent, her strength evaporated. Viesters knelt before her, gently lifting her goggles to reveal eyes swollen and crimson from burst vessels. He administered drops, a small act of care amid the ordeal. Together, the group inched toward Camp 3. Over the following days, Chantal's condition improved enough for her to descend under her own power, though gingerly. Viesters, known for his ironclad safety principles, later reflected that this was the only climb where he bent his rules, a testament to the bonds forged in extremity. In her later accounts of the K2 expedition, Chantal downplayed her brush with death, mentioning only passing eye pain before shifting focus to the jubilant base camp receptions. She described warm embraces from fellow climbers, the sweetness of human connection filling her after the isolation of the heights. Strikingly, Thor Kieser, the man who had saved her life multiple times, received not a single mention in her memoirs, erased as if he had never existed. At the mountain's base, authorities slapped her with a substantial fine for the unauthorized team switch. Chantal tore it up with disdain, her defiance unbroken. Climber Gennady Kopika, in a tribute to Alexei Nikiforov, who later perished on Everest, similarly minimized Thor's role, referring to him as an anonymous American who turned back short of the top. Instead, he elevated Alexei as the primary savior, guiding Chantal until reinforcements arrived. Nikiforov himself disputed her summit claim, arguing she had misjudged her stamina, though it was officially recorded. With Wanda Ruckiewicz' death fresh in memory, Chantal became the only living woman to have returned from K2's summit. France welcomed her as a national hero, parades and praise showering down. But in the tight-knit climbing world, her reputation darkened. Whispers grew to outright condemnation. She was the Black Widow, ensnaring men in her web, using them for her ascents while showing little regard for their safety or lives. Many felt she drained resources and endangered teams, her charm a venomous lure. Yet not all views were damning. Climber Dan Mazur offered a counterpoint, portraying her as a rebel against the commercialized, Sherpa-heavy expeditions backed by big sponsors. She simply loved the mountains, he said. Those guys all wanted her. She used what she had. Why not? She had the fire of a winner. Tough, not always sunny, plagued by knee injuries and inconsistent form, but unbreakable. Sometimes, she pushed too far, and it showed. The K2 victory opened doors to sponsorships, fueling her next quests. In spring 1993, she joined a New Zealand Everest team. Despite a robust group of 9 climbers and 8 high-altitude Sherpas, Chantal bizarrely claimed she was ascending solo and faster than the rest, a boast that irked her companions. She reached 8,400 meters, but, underdressed and sluggish, wisely turned back. Craving independence, she later summited 2 8,000-meter peaks with a single Sherpa without permits, a bold but illegal move. In Kathmandu, another fine loomed. Unpaid, she fled to France, lambasting the bureaucratic red tape strangling Himalayan adventures. Antarctica followed, where she climbed Mount Vinson for a documentary, her story capturing screens worldwide. Back to Everest on an unexplored northeast ridge as a paying client in Russell Bryce's expedition. Avalanches blocked the path. Exhaustion claimed the team, including Chantal, forcing retreat. In 1995, she integrated into Rob Hall's Everest crew on the southeast ridge. She pushed to the south summit at 8,750 meters before Hall intervened, his hand on her shoulder demanding descent. Her lips were blue, eyes glazed. She nodded weakly. Mere 30 meters down, she collapsed unconscious on the slope. Hall realized the gravity he'd have to drag her, risking everything. He and others, including Ed Viesters, rescuing her yet again, lowered her to safety. At the tents, medical aid revived her swiftly. By the next day, she was back to her vibrant self in base camp, as if the ordeal had been a mere dream. Hall returned seething. I hauled her like a sack of potatoes. She's banned from my trips forever. The label stuck. Chantal, the perpetual damsel whose rescues jeopardized others. Summit dreams shattered for many. Lives hung in the balance. Thor later mused on her allure. She didn't think about safety. I climbed with her out of love, not logic. She was our Helen of Troy. Maddening, inspiring 1,000 climbers to folly. A 1994 French magazine article questioned the authenticity of her feats, deeming them too effortless for credibility. When British climber Alison Hargreaves died on K2, Chantal's response was chillingly pragmatic. I admire her, but we're different. At least I'm still alive. After 6 Everest failures, Chantal shifted to Cho Oyu, a peak without a recorded female ascent. In 1996, with an American team, a ferocious storm hit during the final push. Her companions retreated, but Chantal pressed on alone, later claiming the first women's summit. Proof? None. No witnesses, no photos. Her camera allegedly froze in the gale. Skeptics abounded. The weather was apocalyptic, coinciding with the deadly Everest disaster where Rob Hall and Scott Fisher perished, and Anatoly Bukreev heroically saved lives. A solo triumph amid such chaos? Many dismissed it as fabrication, the intrigue deepening her enigmatic legacy. Undeterred, she conquered Manaslu next, earning French media's acclaim as the era's greatest climber. Thor recalled her power. She ruled men with a glance. She'd joke, too many men, too little time. Ex-lovers approached like predators. She'd stare them down. Sorry, have we met? The story's climax arrives in 1998 on Dhaulagiri, a haunting finale shrouded in mystery. Climbing with Rita Sherpa, more companion than hired help, they pitched at Camp 2 near an Italian team. Franco Brunello warned of a crevasse above. Chantal thanked him, zipping into her tent as heavy snow fell. The Italians descended to weather the storm, noting her tent buried but standing. Returning, it remained unchanged. Alarmed, they shoveled through the drift and discovered horror. Chantal and the Sherpa dead in their sleeping bags. Her jaw was mangled, neck snapped. He appeared suffocated. Not on the ascent, but safe in camp. How? An ice block collapse is theorized, but no one witnessed it. Whispers of foul play lingered, unanswered questions hanging like mist over the peaks. What dark secret claimed them in that isolated haven? Chantal's body was repatriated to France for cremation. Her will was a masterpiece of eccentricity. Detailed instructions for her ashes scattering across countless sites, so many that her family still hasn't completed the task. At her memorial, her recorded laughter was to boom through the air post-service, a final, defiant echo of her vivacious spirit. Chantal Maudit's life was a tapestry of soaring triumphs and plummeting heartbreaks, woven with threads of ambition, seduction, and tragedy. She challenged the mountains and the men who loved them, leaving a legacy that intrigues and divides to this day. Was she a visionary trailblazer or a reckless manipulator? The peaks hold their secrets, but her story endures, a cautionary tale of the fine line between glory and the abyss.